see you come in. Well, anyway, you're just in time because we're going to be baking some bread today. Some good old-fashioned Tuscan bread. And what better place in the heart of Tuscany? Let's get started, shall we? Alright. Well, in here I've got my basic ingredients, what I'm going to call a poolish. This is something I recommend every home baker do. It's a great way to give a little bit of liveliness to your home bread. Make it taste a little bit more like that stuff that comes out of your favorite bakery. Basically, a poolish is just a little bit of dough you use to ferment for a bunch of hours before you actually make your real bread. When you add it to your final bread dough, before you actually put it in the oven, it kind of has the effect of aging it a little bit, making it taste a little more earthy, bringing out those flavors from the yeast and the starch grains, making it taste a little more, you know, like bread, you know? Like bread. Okay, so let's get going. How do you make a little poolish? Well, basically, you just want to take equal parts flour and water, mix them together with a little bit of yeast, and so you've got what looks to be like a very loose pudding. Let it sit for about 2 to 6 hours or so, and you should be good to go. So let me walk you through it. I'm going to take what looks to be about, I'm going to go with 4 ounces of flour right there. I'm going to go with, try to get the same amount of water. It's about 4 ounces. 4 ounces of water being a half a cup. Since flour is a little heavier, I'm going to say it's about 3/4 of a cup of flour. Mix them together. And before they get too mixed, I'm going to add some yeast. This is fresh compressed yeast. This stuff is really hard to find in supermarkets, but if they have a refrigerated section, there's a chance they might have this kind of stuff. If you can't find this, use any kind of yeast. Active, dry, instant yeast, it's all the same. Basically, the reason why you would use this is because all the yeast cells are alive completely. So as soon as I throw a little bit in there, boom, fermentation begins. If you use the active, dry stuff, not all of it's alive, so you're going to have to wait for a little while. So, since this is just a starter, I'm only going to take a little pinch, just this much. You don't need a lot. Crumble it up and add it right in. And since this looks a little dry, you can get a picture of that. We want it to be a little looser. I'm just going to add a tiny bit more water. At this point, the ratios aren't exact. So just go with whatever feels good, you know? Now, as this starts to ferment, it's going to get a little soupier. So if it looks a little too liquidy like that, just go ahead with a pinch more flour. Now, one of the things I'll recommend you do to guarantee pretty good bread is use organic flour, if you can find it. Definitely don't use bleached flour. You don't have to use organic, but bleached flour is just like, you know, it's just like saying to yourself, well, I don't care about good bread, I'm just going to use the worst flour I can find. And if you do that, you deserve bad bread, and you shouldn't be watching my show. I'm sorry. But anyway, so what we got here is pretty good. It's a little soupy, so a little bit more flour. And the point is we're going to kind of mix it together until we can see those strands of gluten develop. It'll take about, 50 to 100 stirs, but not much more than that. And keep in mind, for the beginner, this is a great way to go because you can't do it wrong. I mean, if it's too soupy, if it's too stiff, it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. You're still going to get good dough. The stiffer it is, the more flavors it's going to bring out. So you're probably asking yourself, well, why not make it extremely stiff? If you make it extremely stiff, it's going to be hard to work with later. When you try to break it apart and add water to it, you're going to have these little chunks of floury balls. It's not going to be easy to work with. So this is about stiff enough for me, if you can get that picture. It's kind of like pancake batter a little bit, right? Alright, there you go. So this is called a poolish. All we do now is cover it with a damp paper towel so it doesn't dry out too much. Let it sit for about, I'd say 2 to 6 hours, and eventually it'll become really bubbly and loose and soupy. It's going to be a poolish. If you want to bring out even more flavors, you can put it in the fridge and cover it for about 10 hours or even 12 to 15 hours. And then you'll have even more depth of flavor. Alrighty, well, come back a little later. We'll add some dough to this, we'll put it in the oven, we'll fire it up, and we'll make some bread. Thanks for checking out Adam's Grills.